Hello, everyone. Welcome to Helps YouTube Live today on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. Good to have you here. My name is Eric, founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And our first mission is to protect them from debt collector harassment. We do that under a law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to leave you alone. They can no longer communicate with you. They have to communicate with the attorney. And so when people find out about Helps, they enroll in our program. We send what's called a cease and desist letter, and creditors have to leave them alone. And let me get this phone turned down here. There we go. And our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And that's the number one reason we do these YouTube live videos, so we can educate seniors about their financial rights. And you can ask questions on the chat, and I also have things that I've written down here. Okay, and I'll be able to address your questions on the chat and also talk about these things. Okay, so Mary says, well, Capital One got a default judgment against me. Now what? Well, if your income is Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits, Mary, you don't need to worry. Remember, twice the amount of your Social Security or federal benefit deposited in your bank account is automatically protected by your bank from garnishment, regardless of what other funds are in there, where they came from. So when a Helps client is sued, and we expect that eventually they're going to get a default judgment, and you can send us a copy. You don't necessarily have to. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, but if you have any documents that you have a question on, you be sure and call us, and we'll go over those with you. But they can't collect from you, and as long as you keep the balance in your bank account less than twice the amount of what your federal benefit is you get each month, and if they were to ever garnish your bank account, your bank will automatically protect that. Are they going to come after your other personal assets like a home or car? It's not their practice to do that. So you don't need to worry about that kind of stuff, Mary. And you can always call and talk to us. That's the whole purpose of Helps. Um, Eric, is it true that consolidated loans in debt collectors cannot take your house or car? I keep on seeing on Google that they can put a lien on it or something. They can't do anything. Um, so every state has what's called exemption laws that protect a certain amount of equity in property. Okay. Um, then there's federal laws also that protect equity in certain types of property. For example, there's a federal law effective in all 50 states that protects a minimum of $217.50 net per week in wages from garnishment. But some states protect more than that. So you got federal laws that apply all 50 states, and you have a state law for that state. So some states don't even permit a garnishment. Now, what about equity in a home, for example? Well, different states have different amount of equities that are protected. Mostly that's important is for bankruptcy. But it's not the practice of a consumer judgment creditor like a credit card company that would sue you and get a judgment to ever go after a person's home, even if you had equity in the home over and above the exemption from the state where you live. Now, why don't they do that? For a number of reasons. Maybe you own it with someone else. And you could also stop them from doing something. There's different things that could be done. So it's just not their practice to do that. And it's the same with a car. They don't go after a person's cars, even if you have equity in a car over and above the exemption in the state where you live. Now, if you owe money on the car and the bank had the title of the car and you're just a registered owner, yeah, they could repossess the car. But I'm talking about a judgment, default judgment, or a judgment for money. Are they going to come after your car? No. But sometimes creditors would use the fear of that, or articles would talk about that could happen. That's like talking about going to Circle K on Friday night at 10 o'clock, worrying about getting hit by a drunk driver. It's possible, but it just doesn't happen. And I know because it doesn't happen. And I've Before I started Helps, I probably filed 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies, and Helps have tens of thousands of members. We do not have a problem with people going after your personal property like that. They don't do it. The most they would ever do is possibly trying to garnish your bank account. But even then, they can't do that. Like I've explained, they don't they don't do that because you're as long as you keep the balance less than twice the amount of your federal benefit in your bank account. So JBR says, Eric, I'm going to take a well-paying job. If a Social Security beneficiary takes a job that exceeds their monthly benefits amount, IRS takes $1 for every $2 and might halt monthly benefits. Um, well, first off, if you get a, if you're on Social Security and you're under a certain age, like I think it's 68 in a few months, then yeah, your Social Security benefits can be reduced a little bit. But after a certain age, you can collect full Social Security, and there's no reduction in your benefits, no matter what you make. Now, if you owe the IRS money, are they going to take $1 for every $2? The most the IRS would do, um, I don't see them. Most the IRS would do if you owed taxes would send you a notice that they intend to offset 15% of your Social Security, but even that is pretty rare. And if you're lower or modest income, you can apply for currently not collectible status. So I don't know where you're getting. They're going to take $1 for every $2. Okay, and they're not going to. So that's that's nothing. You can always call and talk to us, but no, that's not going to happen. No. Um, I got two letters from Albany Company trying to do settlement. Do I send them? If you get if you're a member of Helps and you get a letter from a collection agency, yeah, you get it to Helps and we'll send them a cease and desist letter or someone to whom you owe money. You don't need to deal with it. So I live in North Carolina, 21750 exemption from garnishment. That is only if I make benefits. Otherwise, they can't touch what is protected. Uh, no, 21750 is net from wages that's protected. Okay. Now, if you get Social Security or pension or disability or VA benefits, that's protected in full. And you don't need to worry about anyone taking money out of your bank account or anything like that unless you're sued and someone gets a judgment. So you can go over this with us, and we've got uh, a wonderful website, www.helpsushere.org, that has links to articles and also explains these laws in detail. Okay. Mrs. H, I want to know, will Helps let us know when the Social Security Administration is going to check into our bank accounts to monitor how people save their Social Security amount over $400 I saw? I don't know what you're talking about on this. You could have 4,000 or 40,000 in your bank account that you've saved from Social Security, and it's protected and it doesn't affect your Social Security that you're entitled to. Okay. So no, there's not an issue with you saving your Social Security. You can do that. So when we talk about protected monies in your bank account, I'm talking about automatic protection in the event that you were garnished. If you've never been sued, then there's nothing to be worried about. Let's see, if you're garnished, twice the amount of federal benefits, like if you got 1,500 in Social Security, 3,000 in there is protected automatically. Now, if you had more than that in there, it was from Social Security, it's still protected. It's just not protected automatically. You'd have to file a challenge to garnishment or claim exemption to get the money released. Is that clear? So this person contacts us from Texas and they say, I'm being sued by Zwicker. That's a common debt collector at law firm, Zwicker and Associates, on behalf of Discover for $5,000. My only income is VA survivor's disability of $2,000, which is exempt. VA benefits in all their forms are exempt. And I get Social Security disability and some $1,800. And then they get a little survivor's pension of $600. Okay. I rent my house and have a loan on the car. No real assets. Is my income fully protected? Yes, it is. So uh, I have separate bank accounts for the Social Security and the VA pension. You don't need to. Remember, twice the amount of federal benefits deposited into a checking account is automatically protected from garnishment. So if you combine the VA disability of 2000 and the Social Security disability of 1800, that's like $3,800 times two would be what? Whatever that is, $6,400. Uh, that amount is protected automatically from garnishment. Now, you've got a Bank of America survivor's pension that can be deposited in there. It's it's not a federal benefit, but it's still protected as long as you keep the balance in the account less than twice the amount of what you get in federal benefits. It's protected automatically by your bank. See, what happens is that the bank has a department that deals with garnishments, and they know the rules, and they look where your money. If they get rid of garnishment, which you probably wouldn't get, you'd have to be sued, and they'd have to know where your bank. But if that happened, then the department of the bank that deals with garnishments can look and determine where your money came from. And if it came from a federal source like VA disability or Social Security, they would add those two sums together and protect twice the month amount you get each month. Okay. Now, if you had them in separate accounts, then you'd have to keep each account less than twice the amount that's going into that account. Okay. Utah. I'm 60 years old. Not me, but this person from Utah. Disabled. I have credit card debt, medical bills, car loan, and not enough money to pay them. I receive Social Security disability. I don't know what to do. Well, that's what helps us here for. We can tell you what they can do and what you don't need to do and what you don't need to worry about. So uh, some people often ask, how old do you have to be with helps? It doesn't matter what your age is. It matters what your source of income is. And this guy, he gets Social Security disability, and he's got medical debt, uh, credit card debt, and a car loan. I'm assuming that he wants to keep his car. Keep making the car payment, you'll keep it. But you don't need to worry about the medical debt, and you don't need to worry about the credit card debt. And if you enroll in helps, you're gonna give us the creditors to whom you owe money. We're gonna send them a cease and desist letter. They're gonna leave you alone. They have to communicate with us and not you. Yeah. When you contact us, one of the questions we're gonna ask you is, do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep? Okay. And if the answer is yes, you could keep that credit card as long as you keep current on the payment and that credit card isn't backed by a bank with whom you have another loan that you're not going to pay. See, you can still keep a credit card and be with helps as long as you don't have another debt that you owe to the bank that banks the credit card that you want to keep. Now that's different in bankruptcy. When you file bankruptcy, even if you have a credit card you owe nothing on, they're going to shut the credit card off because the banks subscribe to a service and lets know when someone files bankruptcy. But no, you can keep credit cards if you want. Sometimes we'll ask, well, what's the balance owed? It's nice to have that credit card you want to keep be a smaller balance. If it's 10,000 or 5,000 or a real big sum, you may want to think twice whether it makes sense to keep that. But let's say you did decide to keep a credit card with a higher balance, and then a couple months from now you decided I can't afford it anymore. Then you could always add it in and contact helps, and we'll send them a cease and desist letter. See, the nice thing about helps is that when you enroll in a helps, you're a client literally forever, so you don't have to deal with collectors. Okay, it needs to be that way because it's not unusual for a debt collector to maybe sue you a couple of years down the road. Maybe you're not going to have to go to court, but you're going to get us that information. We're going to let the attorney know that your income is protected. You're not going to go to court. We're going to call you, send you emails, explain to you why you don't need to go to court, and why you don't need to worry. Or you may get a new notice from a new debt collector down the road. You get that information to us. So helps. Our assistance is not just one time. It's literally forever, so you don't have to deal with these creditors. I've been slowly losing all credit cards that are current and paid off every month based on review of your credit. Sometimes they won't just cancel them, but they'll just lower the credit limit. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. Okay. And Diane points out the fact that in New York City, they passed a law that tells the bank to protect a certain amount of money automatically against garnishment. Nice law. But let's say, for example, your Social Security was $2,500 each month. Well, you wouldn't need to worry about that New York law because 2,500 times 2 would be 5,000. The federal law protects more than that New York amount. Okay. I will say this. The protections that are afforded debtors who owe money, they're not being taken away. If anything, they're being added to as time goes on. Okay. And this is a good example. They're being added to, not taken away. So I don't want you to worry about, well, gee, Eric said this or Eric said that. I'm worried they may change the law and I may lose this money. Not going to happen. Okay. So this person contacts us from California. I said, I contacted your office quite some time ago. You gave me information about my protection rights. I provided those to all the credit card companies and they stopped harassing me and left me alone. However, I recently discovered that TD USA Bank is attempting to file a lawsuit. I'm the sole income with my limited income, Social Security, disability, and a small retirement fund. I'm also disabled. Please contact me for additional help. Thank you. Uh, yeah, the person could send out a cease and desist letter themselves. Okay, you could do that. Some people do. Um, although if I had 50 clients or people call us, maybe 1 out of 50 would decide they want to represent themselves in that regard. Most seniors don't. They don't want to deal with it. But in this guy's, he says he discovered that they're attempting to file a lawsuit. What happened is he may have gotten a letter in the mail from a different attorney, a bankruptcy attorney, saying that he's been sued, and so he realized he's been sued, and that's an advertisement from a bankruptcy attorney who subscribes to a service that lets them know when someone's been sued in the area where they practice, the physical area where they practice. So he sent an advertisement letter saying, hey, you've been sued, you can file bankruptcy. Sometimes our clients will call us and they have no idea they've been sued, but they get 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5 of those letters from different law firms that do bankruptcy. And then I tell them, well, you're eventually going to get served with a summons. And when you get that to helps. Send a letter to the attorney that sued you, let them know your income is protected. You don't need to worry. Nothing's going to happen. Okay? Yeah, I did read that, Diane. Per bank. Cool law. Pretty cool. Um, but some states don't even permit garnishment of bank account. I mean, it just it depends. Okay, but that's a good law for New York. So here's someone writes in with an interesting question. Can a lawsuit by a credit card company take away a mineral interest? Well, that's one of these questions where, yeah, it is theoretically possible, but in 46 years of practice, soon to be 47 years of practice, I've never seen anyone had a mineral interest ever garnished from them. I'm sure it's happened in the world, but never with one of my tens of thousands of people I've helped over the years. First, they would never know about it. No, it'd be different. How are they going to find out? You could sell them mineral interest. There's different things could be done, but just not going to happen. So I would tell this person that, and especially a credit card. Yeah, no, no, they're not going to. Yeah, it probably could be garnished, your mineral rights. Um, but it's not going to happen. Okay. So this person contacts us from California and they say, I have a credit card debt and I need help. I've talked to one of our paralegals a couple times. I have debt I can't pay. I'm scared. I can't afford much. I went from really good credit to something, a bad word, in a matter of months. I'm 75 years old, retired. I went through my savings. I got a pension and Social Security, and that is my income. Well, we're gonna tell this guy, and our paralegal is gonna tell you, you don't need to worry. Okay, you don't need to be scared. Okay, um, your income is Social Security. And your pension is it's protected. Twice the amount of your federal benefits in your bank account is protected automatically in the event you're going to be sued, and you may never ever get sued. And if you don't want to have to deal with the debt collectors, you can roll in helps. You're going to give the creditors you owe money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. If you ever have a question, you're going to call us on the phone. We're going to talk to you why you don't need to worry. And if you ever are worried, we're going to tell you you can always call us no matter how often. Okay? So you don't need to be scared. If you're scared, I want you to listen to what we talk about today or look at some of other YouTube videos and call us on the phone. You don't need to be scared. Talk to people all the time that worry at night, they lose sleep. Yeah, you don't. This is why helps was started. Okay, so I did I did nothing but bankruptcy since 1986. Okay, I I got rid of all my other cases in 1986. I did all kinds of law before then, and then in '86 I just saw the writing on the wall. There was just too many people needed help, and then seniors would come into them, and I'd tell them, I say, you know, creditors really can't do anything to you because your Social Security is protected, so is your pension. But I know if I sent them home, uh, creditors could call and make their lives miserable. And then what happened in 2004, the bankruptcy laws were changed, and the cost of bankruptcy almost doubled overnight. And then I remember when bankruptcy was less than 500 bucks, 400 bucks to file bankruptcy. But then in 2008, the Great Recession hit, and a lot of seniors lost some of their retirement funds, and it just became a problem. And so a lot of seniors would come to our office, and we'd tell them you don't need to file bankruptcy, and a lot of them couldn't afford to. But if they went home, I knew the creditor's going to call them on the phone. So helps was started under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which was passed in 1974, which provides if you're represented by an attorney, collectors have to leave you alone. So when people enroll in helps, we send letters to the creditors you owe money to, and they're going to leave you alone. And we found helps so that seniors wouldn't need to worry, and that we would represent you ongoing, so that if you ever did worry, you could always call us. Okay. And I'm glad we did do it. I'm glad we did do it because we help a lot of people, help a lot of seniors that need this help. And the other thing too is it's just there's a lack of this information that you hear from me. You know, it's not out there. These debt management companies, with rare exceptions, will never tell a senior that their income is protected. And or if you have questions about your debt, they're not going to advise you that, hey, your Social Security is protected. You can file a cease and desist letter, and they can't call you. And they're not going to tell you that. If you told them that, they wouldn't collect money from you and they wouldn't get paid. So they look out for their own financial interest. They don't give people correct information. Okay, so this person contacts us from Indiana. It says, I lost my job in November. I was paying my credit card debt until my unemployment just ran out in May. I've applied for Social Security and will start collecting in November. I owe approximately $37,000. Can you help me? I'm desperate and don't want to lose my home. You're not going to lose your home. Just keep making the house payment. You can stop paying the credit card debt. You can stop paying it. Uh, Now, if you owe $37,000 in credit card debt, I would guess your payment on that is probably $800 or $900 a month, close to that, if not at least that. So if you've been paying that, you don't need to pay that anymore. You can use that money to help pay for your house payment or your food or your medicine or your needs. Now, you might say, well, Eric, his Social Security isn't going to start till November. I don't care. That's only 2 months away. Okay? This is the first, second of September. We got October and then it's November. I'm not worried about that. And he's not working. Nothing to worry about. Okay? So another person contacted us from Maine. Says I'm currently struggling with credit card debt. I pay the minimums and then I'm completely out of money for the entire month and cannot afford to live. My only income is SSI, and I was wondering what my options could be. You know what? You got three options. Okay, one option is deal with the problem on your own. No one can touch your SSI. You could theoretically file bankruptcy. You couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. You don't need to file bankruptcy. And then the third option is the HELPS program. And then what we would do is represent you. You give us the creditors you owe money to. We send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone, and you're going to be our client. So you can always call if you're worried or have questions, because you don't need to worry. Now, what's the cost of HELPS? You know, we don't turn anyone away that qualifies for our program. The most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months free thereafter, or $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months free thereafter, depending on your household income. So we make it work for people. We don't want you to go. We want you we want it to work for people. And maybe 1 out of 7 of our clients get our help for free. They make very little money. They're under our guidelines. Okay. So East Salt Lake said, if I paid an attorney last week to file bankruptcy, now decided not to, would I get our money payment back? The case hasn't been filed yet. Well, I don't know how much you paid him. If you paid him in full, yeah. I mean, if he hasn't done any work or you haven't given him any paperwork, he should give you virtually all the money back, except maybe for a fee for when you met with him. Okay, attorney has to earn the money to be paid, and so if you cancel that, they've got to refund you money. Now, if you only paid him a couple $100, he may decide that he's going to keep that for the work he did up to that point. The question I would have is, when you met with him and you're getting Social Security or a pension, did he tell you that your income was protected, that no one could take it, and that you didn't need to file bankruptcy? If he didn't tell you that, then he wasn't giving you complete information. Now, most bankruptcy attorneys will tell the complete truth, but once in a while they don't. Okay? Thanks, Robert. So Dottie says, "Hi Eric, will the bank give you the 1099-C form? What happens if they do not? Please move your speaker closer to you. It's hard to hear. I'm sorry. Do that. I'm so sorry. Hopefully that's better, Dottie." So you don't get it from a bank. A 1099-C form is a notice that a creditor will give you. You'll get it in the mail. And what it is, it's a form they file with the IRS, letting the IRS know that you didn't pay a debt, and they considered it not collectible. They wrote it off. And the theory behind it is that if you didn't pay that debt, then that's income to you, and you should have to pay taxes on it. Now, if you're not required to file tax returns, you probably don't need to worry about that 1099-C. IRS isn't going to do anything about it. But if you are required to file tax returns, if your debts exceed your assets, you're insolvent, you can file Form 982, and it says that you're insolvent, which means your debt exceeds your assets essentially, and there would be no tax. But let's say you did owe tax because of a 1099-C, which I doubt you would. But if you did, and your income is modest or lower income, you can get on currently not collectible status and not have to pay the tax. So we don't really see a problem with our clients with 1099-C issues. Okay. Okay. So this person contacts us from Oklahoma, and they say, "I saw you on YouTube and thought maybe there is help for me. I have current balances on 4 credit cards and a personal loan from my bank, paying off a credit card balance with my bank. My income has been reduced quite a bit in the last few years, and I can no longer afford all this debt and my monthly expenses. I would like to learn how I can deal with my situation." Well, very simple. Listen to helps and we'll tell you what to do. If your income is Social Security or a pension, maybe even a little income from a job, it's protected. You don't need to pay the debt. Maybe you have a credit card with a small balance you want to keep. You could keep paying that credit card. Don't need to worry. And you could keep that credit card as long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card you're not going to pay. Okay, this person contacts us from Oregon. Their Social Security income is $2,800. Uh, they have a 401k, which is a retirement form, which is a retirement amount. They got 10,000 in there. So 401k is protected. No one can take it. So is an IRA. IRA is an independent retirement account. 401k is another type of retirement account. No one can take that money. It's protected. In the event someone were to sue you, they couldn't garnish or take it from you. They pay $1,600 in rent, which leaves them about $1,250 to live on. They were born. They're about 77 years old. They have 50,000 in debt. And he says, "I'm ready to stop free falling." The guys come up with great adjectives that describe your situation. That's a new one to me. I don't want to free fall anymore. In other words, he's falling with all this debt. He doesn't know he doesn't know what's going to happen, where he's going to land, where he's going to stop. He doesn't have anything to worry about. I'm telling you. Having had a career in law, they say, "I understand seniors' laws and regulations. Is your opinion that I can represent myself?" You can if you want. Also, my adult daughter was listed on my 2 indebted credit cards. I removed her from both cards. Can the banks go after her for unpaid debt? Well, okay. If your daughter was only a authorized user on the card, then no, she's not responsible. You didn't even take her off. You know, a person can have a credit card in their name and they can put someone else's name on it that give them authority to use the card, but that other person is not financially responsible. And the only way you got her removed from the card is because that person wasn't financially responsible. You just added her as an authorized user. If she was financially responsible on the card, the bank would have never allowed her to be removed from the card. But since they allowed her to be removed, that tells me that she wasn't financially responsible for the card. So the answer, can the banks go after her for the unpaid debt, is a big fat no. They can't. Now, I have seen collectors for credit card companies try to get a signer on a credit card that was only an authorized user to get to pay the debt. You don't have to. Got it? Okay. Person contacts us from Pennsylvania. I'm 66 on disability. I'm debt over my head. It's another great one. The other guy was falling, free fall. This guy is in debt over his head, approximately 20. Doesn't need to worry. Contacts us. We can send letters to your creditors. They're going to leave you alone. Now, if you notice one thing, we help people in all 50 states. So it doesn't matter where you are. Call us if you have a question. 855-435-7787. The number is right down there. Okay. And that's our website too. You can look at. And if you've got any questions, you can put in the chat feature. And if you notice, we have a group of followers that have their own little private discussion going on while I'm talking, which is fine. I don't mind that. But so if you have a question, I spot those and I get those. I try to answer those for you. So here's a person contacts us from Virginia. I'm an 82-year-old widow living on Social Security and a disability pension from the United States Postal Service. I'm moving into a HUD-assisted apartment, housing and urban development, next month from the basement of my son's house. And I'm worried about the credit card debt. I won't be able to pay it since I will be taking on rent and utilities. I've always kept up on those payments, but now I will not be able to manage more than my basic needs. Not to worry. Give us if you want, you can give us the credit card you owe money to. We'll send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. So if we have 5 people that enroll in helps, maybe 1 out of 5 is being sued. 3 or 4 are behind and getting hounded by creditors. And then 1 out of 5 is completely current on everything, but they finally realize they can't afford to pay the debt. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you're current on everything, you don't have to wait and be behind and have creditors call you before you enroll in helps. You can contact us immediately. Some people, I always talk about, they dig a hole. They keep paying the debt. Maybe they use the credit cards to pay the debt, and finally get to the point where they can't pay it anymore. It's like they're throwing dirt out of the hole, but they can't get it over the lip, and it just starts crumbling down on them. And they finally realize they can't. You don't have to wait that long. You can roll with this a lot sooner than that. So Ms. H says, when a client moves out of the country, do they still get help if needed? Sure. We get a lot of people that enroll in helps that are in different countries, Thailand, Philippines, some people in Europe, Costa Rica, I don't know. We got clients all over the world. And they enroll us from all over the world. So this person contacts us. I saw this on one of our videos or something. It says, what do you think of a home equity line of credit for a debt consolidation. So what they're asking is, see, if you've got a home and you've got equity in it, sometimes you can get what's called a HELOC loan, home equity line of credit. That's the acronym is HELOC. And normally how that works is it's good for 10 years and you pay interest only, and the interest can fluctuate up or down. Usually it fluctuates up and down. But you still have to make a payment, and you're not, and sometimes if you get a HELOC, they'll give you a line of credit on the HELOC. Let's say it's $20,000. Okay. You could use it a little bit at a time, or you could use it all at one time. A lot of times people, it's just kind of like a little safety net. Now, the person's asking me, should I get a HELOC instead of going debt consolidation? It depends. It's kind of a lot of things. If you take a HELOC loan, a home equity line of credit, then you owe money on that house. You go to sell the home, that's money you're going to have to pay, and that you're going to have to now. Obviously, if you get a HELOC loan, the interest would probably be lower than what the credit card could be. So it kind of depends on the situation. You may not need to do that, but it could be if you have a higher income as a senior and you can afford that payment and you didn't want to not pay your creditors, that could be a wise way to go. Okay. But there's a lot of reasons why it might not be the better way to go too. So why would they need help if in other countries? That's a good question. No one's going to be able to sue them if they're in Mexico or Panama or Philippines or Europe. That's true. But they still get dunning notices, and people are just nervous about that kind of thing. Yeah. So in some ways you could say, why does a senior need help in the United States? Right? If your income's protected, no one can take it. If you get sued, you don't need to go to court and they can't take your money. You may not need help. That's why he said you got people call us sometimes and say you got three options: deal with the problem on your own, file bankruptcy, which you don't need to do, or the helps program. Well, the reason, Diane, is people don't want to deal with it on their own, with few exceptions. They don't want their kids being contacted. They don't want to get the collection notices in the mail. They don't want to deal with it. That's why. Okay. So this person contacts us. They say, I know that's true that you don't have to pay those bills, but it does mess up your credit if you do or need to want to buy a small house, or it affects renting an apartment. They want big deposits if your credit is any good. So you're danged if you do and you're danged if you don't. But he didn't use the word dang. He used another word. So, yeah, not paying your debt can affect your credit, but, we have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. Uh, that that's available to our clients after they've been part of helps for 90 days. You can get your credit back if you want. Your credit is based on your recent credit history. This person says, if you're in Costa Rica, must you appear in court if summoned? No. You got to realize, if you're in court in America, you don't have to appear in court. When one of our clients gets sued, we let them know, hey, we send a letter to the creditor who sued you, letting them know that your income is protected, that you're not going to go to court. They can get a default judgment, but that's the end of it. And twice the amount of your federal benefits is protected in your bank account from garnishment. Now, if they try to file some follow-up paperwork, uh, no, they can't drag you in from Costa Rica to appear in court for any reason. Now, if you committed a crime, there might be laws where they could extradite you, but that has nothing to do with the civil matters we're talking about with debt. You're not going to go to jail. No need to worry about that. Okay. Then this person says, this was a comment to one of our videos. It says, then why are you penalized for saving money if you're disabled? If I can't walk to the store and I can't save to better my situation by a wheelchair or scooter, then what? They must have been thinking that maybe if they tried to save money, their money would be at risk. Well, okay. When I talk about twice the amount of your federal benefits being protected in your bank account in which it's deposited, I'm talking about automatic protection. But if you have Social Security in there more than twice the amount, it's still protected, just not automatically. The excess over twice the amount, you have to file a challenge of garnishment or claim of exemption. In a few states, if you get a pension and it goes in your bank account, a creditor could get at it. I don't see that happening very rarely. If uh, as long as you keep the balance, if it's deposited in an account in which your Social Security goes, you keep it less than twice the amount. It doesn't matter what other funds are in there. But we'll talk with people if it looks like there's going to be a problem and tell them what they can do. If you're, this person says, I don't see it there. Okay, here's another one. People try to correct me all the time. I won't say that I'm perfect, but a lot of times they're wrong. He guy says on a comment on a video, he said, sorry to break the news, but Social Security absolutely can, and he puts that in all caps, be garnished. Blood-sucking student loan organizations are fully capable of taking your Social Security funds. So I commented back to the guy, and this was a few hours ago on one of our videos or some video that we did. When I said, as of June 3rd, 2025, the United States Department of Education has paused the garnishment of Social Security benefits for defaulted federal student loans. They were going to start it up on May 5th, and less than a month later, they changed their mind. And then they say that they may start it up again. They'll give notice before they do that. But if you have modest or lower income, you can qualify for what is income-based repayment plan and not have to pay anything. But I kind of think they're going to be slow on starting up set-offs of Social Security. Since about 2018 or 2017, they haven't done it at all. Now, if you owe a past due student loan, are they going to sue you? No, don't sue. Are they going to go after your pension? The most they would ever do, and then can't do it now, would send you a letter saying we're going to offset 15% of your Social Security. And normally they have, after so many days, 60 days, that would give you time enough to apply for currently not collectible status. I mean, an income-based repayment plan to pay the student loan. So this person, they writes in, they say, I was told by my bank that if a judge has a judgment against me, they have to let them take my Social Security money. So I'm paying so much a month for 2 years. I was told, don't worry about it, ignore it. Someone else told him that. Well, that was not true. Well, the second person told you the truth. So I have another letter from another company that bought the credit card account and so on and so on. What is the truth? No. I've yet talked to a bank manager that understands the rule that about how twice the amount of your federal benefits in your bank account are protected. And once in a while, a person will say something like you did, that the bank told them something different. Well, there's a department in the bank that handles garnishments. They know the rule. So if your bank manager told you that they're going to take the money from you or garnish it, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Um, so my mortgage went up, and my light is going to be turned off if I don't pay. Um, and tried to get some help. Um, we don't have the ability to give money here. It helps, but there's debt you can certainly not pay and get the lights. Maybe have money to turn the lights. In a desperate situation, you theoretically could miss a mortgage payment. Mortgage isn't going to do anything until you're 3 or 4 months behind. Uh, only problem with that is you might have a late fee. Helps can't put more money in your pocket, but what we can do is, you know, let you know what debt you don't have to pay so that you have more money from what you receive to be able to deal with debt problems. So this person writes in and says, they say, okay, but what if you're married and your spouse is not a senior yet? Can they just sue her instead being that they always consider spouses to be responsible for each other's debt? Well, they don't always consider spouses being responsible for each other's debt. There is a law. There's 7 states that are called community property states that were technically, if one spouse incurs a debt, the other spouse is deemed to be liable on it. If it's a family debt, okay, not necessarily a business debt. But it's, as far as credit card debts, it's not the practice of credit card companies to go after a spouse that didn't sign for the credit card, even in a community property state. Now, you won't hear that from other people or other attorneys. They'll say, well, if it's a community property state, they can go after you. Well, they probably can legally, but they don't do it. So we're talking about the real world here, what happens in the real world. They don't. For whatever reason, the credit card companies have made a decision that even in community property states, they're not going to go after a spouse that didn't sign for the credit card. Okay? So this person contacts us from Illinois, 64 years age, get $1,950 in Social Security. He called us a couple days ago. He banks at Navy Federal and he owes them $2,000. He has other credit cards as well. And he wants to keep the Navy Federal Credit Union card, which he can. And he had an old car that he owes money on, but they never repossessed it. It's not that unusual. If you have a car that's really old and you don't make the payment, for a lender to decide not to repossess it. Because it costs money to repossess a car. They have to pay someone to repossess it. They have to put it through an auction. And it may not be worth it. It may only be worth $1,000, $1,500. Time they pay anything, and when they go on auction, they may not get enough money to pay the person who repossessed the car. Sometimes you just leave it alone. Okay. So this guy's got a couple of Capital One cards. He's going to have surgery in a week or so. Yeah, we can help him. Doesn't need to worry. So yeah, we're coming down near the end. We just got a couple more minutes. So, but I'll keep going. I like to go to the end. So if you have a question, put it in the chat before we get cut off. You can always make comments. I try to address those. Or you can always call us toll free at the number down here, wherever it is. Down here? Yeah. 855-435-7787. So this person contacts us from Oklahoma. Their age is 80. They get a little bit under $1,300 in Social Security. I saw you on YouTube and thought maybe there is help for me. I have current balances on 4 credit cards and a personal loan from my bank, paying off an old credit card balance. My income has been reduced quite a bit over the last few years, and I can no longer afford all this debt and my monthly expenses. I would like to learn how I can deal with my situation. Thank you. And then he called back a few days ago. He has a home that he's buying, but it's in trust. He lives in Oklahoma anyway. It's protected. He has a car outright, credit card, and wants to change the bank to a local bank. We explained what we did, quoted our fees, and they enrolled. And the last thing it says is that they were relieved to have found us. Okay, so it's at the end. I want to thank you for participating today. If you have any questions, you can call us, and I will see you tomorrow, same time. Okay? God bless, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.